Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning, we will be in Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 through chapter 13, verse 4. The whole earth had a common language and a common vocabulary. When the people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. Then they said to one another, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They had brick instead of stone and tar instead of mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered across the face of the entire earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people had started building. And the Lord said, "If as one people, all sharing a common language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be beyond them. Come, let's go down and confuse their language, so they won't be able to understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there across the face of the entire earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the entire world. And from there the Lord scattered them across the face of the entire earth. This is the account of Shem. Shem was 100 years old when he became the father of Arphaxad, 2 years after the flood. And after becoming the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad had lived 35 years, he became the father of Shelah. And after he became the father of Shelah, Arphaxad lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he became the father of Eber. And after he became the father of Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he became the father of Peleg. And after he became the father of Peleg, Eber lived 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he became the father of Reu. And after he became the father of Reu, Peleg lived 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu had lived 32 years, he became the father of Serug. And after he became the father of Serug, Reu lived 270 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug had lived 30 years, he became the father of Nahor. And after he became the father of Nahor, Serug lived 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor had lived 29 years, he became the father of Terah. And after he became the father of Terah, Nahor lived 119 years and had other sons and daughters. When Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. Haran died in the land of his birth, in Ur of the Chaldeans, while his father Terah was still alive. And Abram and Nahor took wives for themselves. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. But Sarai was barren; she had no children. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and with them he set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. When they came to Haran, they settled there. The lifetime of Terah was 205 years, and he died in Haran. Now, the Lord said to Abram, "Go out from your country, your relatives, and your father's household, to the land that I will show you. Then I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, so that you will exemplify divine blessing. I will bless those who bless you, but the one who treats you lightly I must curse. And all the families of the earth will bless one another by your name." So Abram left, just as the Lord had told him to do, and Lot went with him. Now Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they left for the land of Canaan. They entered the land of Canaan. Abram traveled through the land as far as the oak tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." So Abram built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. Then he moved from there to the hill country, east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and worshipped the Lord. Abram continually journeyed by stages down to the Negev. There was a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to stay for a while because the famine was severe. As he approached Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "Look, I know that you are a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but will keep you alive. So tell them you are my sister, so that it may go well for me because of you, and my life will be spared on account of you." When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. When Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. So Abram's wife was taken into the household of Pharaoh, and he did treat Abram well on account of her. Abram received sheep and cattle, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe diseases because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Here is your wife. Take her and go." Pharaoh gave his men orders about Abram, and so they expelled him, along with his wife and all his possessions. So Abram went up from Egypt into the Negev. He took his wife and all his possessions with him, as well as Lot. Now Abram was very wealthy in livestock, silver, and gold, and he journeyed from place to place. From the Negev as far as Bethel, he returned to the place where he had pitched his tent at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai. This was the place where he had first built the altar, and there Abram worshipped the Lord. Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents. But the land could not support them while they were living side by side, because their possessions were so great, they were not able to live alongside one another. So there were quarrels between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land at that time. Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no quarreling between me and you, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself now from me. If you go to the left, then I'll go to the right. But if you go to the right, then I'll go to the left." Lot looked up and saw the whole region of the Jordan. He noticed that all of it was well watered, before the Lord obliterated Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, all the way to Zoar. Lot chose for himself the whole region of the Jordan and traveled toward the east. So the relatives separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, but Lot settled among the cities of the Jordan plain and pitched his tents next to Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were extremely wicked, rebels against the Lord. After Lot had departed, the Lord said to Abram, "Look from the place where you stand, to the north, south, east, and west. I will give all the land that you see to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone is able to count the dust of the earth, then your descendants also can be counted. Get up and walk throughout the land, for I will give it to you." So Abram moved his tents and went to live by the oaks of Mamre and Hebron, and he built an altar to the Lord there. Oh, I've gone way past where I was supposed to. Well, you get chapter 13 as well today. Okay. So you have the post-flood people coming together and building a tower for themselves to and them saying, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered across the face of the entire earth." And then getting scattered across the face of the entire earth despite that. The descendants of Shem, and how they slowly decrease in years from 500 to 119 years. Then you have Abram being told to go out of the land to the land of Canaan. and then there being a famine, him going down to Egypt and saying to his wife Sarai, tell them that you're my sister. And the consequence of that being was that she was taken into the Pharaoh's household, and the Lord was with Abram and Sarai, though, and instead of taking her as his wife, the Pharaoh is told that she's his wife, and he gives her back to Abram. And then you have Abram and Lot splitting up because of the amount of stuff that each of them have. The land couldn't sustain them both. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. If we accept the biblical teaching that mankind has a common origin in Adam, then this simply makes sense. That there was a time when humanity spoke one language instead of the hundreds on the earth today. The land of Shinar. Shinar was a term used also of Babylon. The multiplied descendants from the ark came together to build a great city and tower, in rebellion against God's command to spread out over the earth. Yeah, back in Genesis 9:1. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Come, let us build ourselves a city. The heart and the materials relevant to the Tower of Babel show that it was not only disobedient to God's command to fill the earth, but it also shows man did not believe God's promise to never again flood the earth. A waterproof tower was made to protect man against a future deluge. Yeah, the fact that they used tar for mortar is conspicuous. The top of the tower was intended to be in the heavens. It is doubtful that they thought they could build a tower to heaven. It is more likely they built the tower as an observation point in the heavens. Most astrological and occult practices have a history back to Babel. If they really wanted to build a tower to reach heaven, it is unlikely they would start on the plain of Shinar, which is about sea level. Common sense says that they would start on one of the nearby mountains. This tower was real. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus said the Tower of Babel still stood in his day, and he had seen it. Yeah. Let us go down. This plural reference to us is another subtle reference to the Trinity. Nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. The potential of fallen man is terrible and powerful. When we think of the horrific accomplishments of evil from men in the 20th century, the great ability of men and nations is a painful consideration. So the Lord scattered them abroad. The division of the languages is a fascinating subject. Modern linguists know man did not invent language, any more than man invented his own circulatory or nervous system. Most modern linguists believe language is so unique that the only way they can explain it apart from God is to say that it was part of a unique evolutionary process. Language cannot be the product of man putting together sounds all by himself. For example, there are many universal human sounds, like the raspberry sound, that are not part of any human language. If man invented language on his own, it would make sense for some language to use that sound. Language is so complex because languages exist as whole systems, not as small parts put together. Most modern linguists believe all languages came from one original language. Yeah, you have the genealogy of Shem, which would later become part of the messianic line recorded in Luke 3. Terah begot Abram. Abram is unique in the way he is called the friend of God. Abram, your friend forever. Abraham, my friend. We all know the value of having friends in high places. Abram had a friend in the highest place. Men and women in the Bible are famous for many different things, but Abram is great for his faith. Moses was the great lawgiver, Joshua a great general, David a great king, and Elijah a great prophet. Most of us know we can never be great in those things, but we can be great people of faith. We can be friends of God. Abram's story begins in Ur of the Chaldeans. Joshua 24:2 describes Abram before the Lord called him. He was from a family of idol worshippers and was probably an idol worshipper himself, notwithstanding Jewish legends. And they came to Haran and dwelt there. Acts 7:2-4 makes it clear that the call of Genesis 12:1-3 came to Abram while he still lived in Ur. When he received this call from God, he was only halfway obedient in at least two ways. First, he brought his father Terah and nephew Lot with him when the Lord called Abram out of your country from your family. Second, Abram stopped and, at least for a time, dwelt in Haran, and not to where God promised, a land that I will show you. They started together for Canaan, so far so good, at least it looks so. The traveling is wearisome, and many are the murmurings. The huge caravan has not gone very far before the proposal is made that they should be satisfied with the move which they had made and remain at Haran. True, it was not Canaan, but it might do as well. From Spurgeon. Halfway obedience increases our responsibility because it is a plain confession that we know the Lord's will, though we do it not. Abram had received the call and knew that he had done so. Else why had he come to Haran? He admitted, by going as far as Haran, that he ought to go the whole way to Canaan, and so by his own action he left himself without excuse. And then Terah died in Haran. Sometimes we can gain meaning from names in the Bible. The name Terah means delay. The name Haran means parched, barren. When Abram was in partial obedience, then delay and barrenness marked his life. When we knowingly disobey God, we often delay the outworking of his plan in our lives, and we also experience barrenness. Yeah. And then you have God admonishing Abram again to go to the land of Canaan. Oh, interesting. Now the Lord had said to Abram, God revealed through Stephen that this promise was made to Abram when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran. Genesis 12:1-3 repeats a promise that God had said to Abram. God repeated that promise now that his father was dead, and Abram was compelled to a more complete obedience. In you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Not only was Abram promised blessing, but God also promised to make him a blessing, even to the point where all the families of the earth would be blessed in Abram. In Galatians 3:8-9 it says, in the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel to Abraham beforehand, saying, in you all the nations will be blessed. So then, those who are of faith are blessed with believing Abraham. Yeah. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abram came into the land of Canaan at this advanced age, Fathering a child through Sarai seemed a long-forgotten hope. Then the Lord appeared to Abram. Once Abram was in the land, God reminded him of his promise. The land Abram saw belonged to Abram and his descendants. It was actual land that Abram saw with his physical eyes. I know that you are a woman of a beautiful countenance. Abram was concerned about his 60-year-old wife's attractiveness to the Egyptians. This shows Sarai was not only a woman of particular beauty, but also that not every culture worships youthful appearance the way modern culture does. The long lifespan of Abram and Sarai also helps to explain her beauty, since Abram lived to be 175 and Sarai to 127. This was only middle age for her, perhaps corresponding to what we think of as her 30s. What is this you have done to me? Sadly, a pagan king had to rebuke Abram. God's divine protection of Abram and Sarai showed that if he would have trusted in God and told the truth, everything would have been all right. But God is in the business of growing Abram into a man of great faith, and this requires circumstances where Abram must trust God. Faith is not a mushroom that grows overnight in damp soil. It is an oak tree that grows for 1,000 years under the blast of the wind and rain. Yeah, true that. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.